Hello everyone, welcome to What If Belle Fell in Love with Lefiya Viridis movie. Before we start, please go support at 556 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Belle is a male. The budding love of an elf. We find ourselves in a desolate area, filled with destruction from the massive war that broke out just a few hours ago in the city center. Those responsible. Simple evilists. You might be wondering, how did it get to this point? Were the Aurario adventurers unable to control the situation? The answer to that last one was a resounding no. Several adventurers were lying on the ground, some dead, others simply wounded or unconscious. The war had tilted to one side, the enemy side. Enemy spirits, an army of vials and creatures, had been the determining members. The mission to assault Nos had been a failure, neither with the plan of Finn the Brave, nor with the strength of the King Otter. In short, even with all the adventurers of the city of Aurario, from the strongest families such as the Freya family and the Loki family, they could stop their inevitable destiny, their inevitable defeat. On behalf of Aze, the Princess of the Sword, she continued fighting against that creature named Revis. However, that battle was about to end with a brutal defeat of the golden-haired girl, who, little by little, was losing her strength due to the constant attacks of the Redeed. Otter was right about her mind was clouded, her heart conflicted. In that state, there was no way she could win. But, there was an even more important question that was echoing in the mind of a certain orange-haired elf, whose male name was Lefiya. She was fighting Filvis, whom she considered a friend and who was now a monster on Evilis's side, in a poor attempt to stop her. That was lying among the rubble, completely knocked out. Ryu Lion or Gale was not in better condition. The girls of the Kali family, Batch and Argana, who, at the request of the Loki family, had arrived as reinforcements, could barely stand, and the Amazons of the Loki family, Tyan and Tiona, were trying to help their friend Lefiya, who was the only one standing before the great challenge of defeating Filvis. However, as mentioned earlier, what was the question that echoed in his mind? Simple. Would this have been the same with him here? Was the question, almost crying as she remembered a certain boy. That he was none other than bellcranel. Or better known as the traitor of the adventurers. Author's note. No, this is not a betrayal fic. Who was exiled from Aurario after a specific moment in history in everyone's life. Flashback. In the middle of the city, a great chaos had broken out. A Vuiver was out of control, destroying everything in its path. Bell, after stopping Akello's plans, went to stop Ween from going to the surface, but he met the worst people at that time, the Loki family. Ween was cornered, with Finn's spear buried in one of her wings. They were getting ready to finish her off, but someone got in the way. Bell's named upon seeing the presence of the white-haired young man, extending his arms, preventing them from attacking the monster. "What are you doing?" Finn asked, not understanding what was happening. Bell knew perfectly well that if he continued with this, if he protected the Vuiver, nothing would be the same. It could have serious consequences for himself and, more importantly, for his family. However, the little girl's smile crossed his mind, that smile she showed during the time they were together in the mansion. She was just a girl who had been harmed by the evil deeds of a god and his family. She was simply another victim of the attack by the Akellos and Evilis family. So with no other option, he would have to become a hypocritical hero. As mentioned before, he stood in the way between Loki and Ween's family, protecting her from imminent death. But the strength of his heart, with his voice about to break, only a few words came out of his mouth. "She's my prey," Bell shouted, detaching the brave spear from Ween's wing, letting her escape through the streets. Bell ran after her to try to put the jewel on her forehead back in place, and thus calm her down, returning her to her normal form. The young man could see the faces of everyone in the place. They were stupefied by what he was doing, although the reaction that hurt him the most was Aze's, who seemed unable to believe what she was seeing. "Sorry Aze, I'm really sorry, but I'd rather live with everyone's hatred than live having betrayed my ideals and what I consider right. It doesn't matter if everyone is against me, I know that I know this is the right thing," thought Bell, turning his gaze and planting it forward, holding back the urge to cry, as well as the sharp pain in his chest. Suddenly a loud bang echoed in the place the boy had left to follow the Vuiver. He had no time to think about it or worry about what was happening. His mind was focused on saving that little girl. It went without saying that those responsible for this were none other than the rest of the Xenos, who had been captured by the Akellos family and controlled by them. They would give Bell enough time to fulfill his mission, to save one of their own. However, returning to the main scene experienced mainly by the white-haired man and his attempt to avoid a fatality. As he ran at high speed, his body aching from his previous battle with Dix and Lid trying to break free from his mind control, he didn't notice the large flurry of attacks coming his way. Several explosions of power and magic were barely dodged by Ween and him. The boy counterattacked with his magic firebolt, without the intention of hitting them directly. He only used it to stop their advance, thus destroying several structures of the homes and shops in his path. However, there was an elf from the Loki family who was chasing him. "Hurry up, Lefiya." A member of the Loki family shouted to the girl in question. "Damn little rookie. Playing for money at a time like this? What the hell is going through his head?" they asked angrily. Lefiya remained silent, she couldn't give an opinion on all this. Although the silence on his lips was sepulchral, the great variety of things that were being said in his mind was no less so. What is that human thinking? I completely refuse to believe it. I can't believe anything he does. Even though many unforgivable things have happened, I know that, even if it's a very, very small part, I know his personality. He's just a foolish adventurer who would give up everything for others thanks to his incredible kindness. She was ashamed of such a thought and screamed. "Why should I worry about you?" was the shout given by the elf. The chase continued, his companions gave him the order to begin his chant while they surrounded him. While doing so, something unthinkable happened. "We will kill her," some adventurers shouted from a rooftop on the side of the street, aiming at the viewer. As if by mere instinct, Bell extended his hand and activated his magic without chanting. Firebolt. The scarlet lightning bolt shot out of his palm towards them. Boom. The cloud of dust rose, preventing them from making their move. Lefiya, from behind, couldn't articulate a word, she couldn't believe how much he was fighting to protect that damn monster. "Little rookie, damn it. Have you lost your mind? Do you want that monster item that badly?" they questioned Bell, although he ignored it and kept his gaze and path forward. The elf gathered her courage and asked questions in his direction. "Bellcranel. What are you doing?" was the first of them. Bell turned slightly to see who it was, but remained silent. Sweat ran all over his face. "Stop it. Answer my question," she insisted, feeling betrayed, as if she didn't recognize the person in front of her. His mind was a mess. Why do you have that pained expression on your face?" she asked herself, but got no answer. Suddenly, she began to remember all the moments she had lived with him. "If you don't tell me, I won't be able to understand," a brittle voice inside his head made noise. "Please show me that usual apology. So my anger will be only a little. And then I'll be able to forgive you." An image of her smiling with her cheeks flushed came to mind. Small tears ran down her cheekbones. "This figure right now doesn't look anything like you," he added to his train of thought. Looking to the side, some wounded adventurers were lying on the ground. He knew it was time to act. Unleash the light of the sacred tree. Shoot, master of the bow. The chant of his magic was heard, almost finished. A great amount of energy was born from his staff, waiting to finish the last sentence and thus shoot at his target. She sighed. Arc's ray. The lightning bolt headed towards the viewer, close to hitting, however it didn't count on something. Bell stepped into the path of the magic, protecting Ween. At this, Lefiya became frightened, fearing to harm him. "Disperse," he shouted, stopping the blow in his tracks. Boom. The explosion hit the boy, who was pushed to the ground by the shock wave, hitting it. Almost without caring, he stood up and continued running before Lefiya's incredulous gaze. "Why?" she asked. He slowed his pace, his arms trembled, his voice too, an expression of pain appeared on his thin face. Hugging his cane, he continued. Wait please, Bellcranel. One reason. Gay, just give me one reason." Already completely far from each other, he released the pain inside him. "Give me an explanation." He fell to his knees, covering his face with both hands, throwing the cane aside. "Why do you do it? This isn't you. Please tell me. I don't really want to hate you. Don't make me hate you. Come and explain to me what's going on. Even if it's a lie. Please. Come. Come." The crying intensified, her heart ached. "If you don't come, I'll." They. Little by little, he regained his courage. They. He stood up, wiping his face with the sleeve of his clothes. "I'll come for you," he shouted, running again. He wouldn't give up. He would not be left behind. She would get her answer. On Bell's side. "I'm sorry, Lefiya, I can't do it, not now, I have to reach her, I have to, it's not too late, it's not too late," the white-haired man said in his mind, ignoring that request. Ween was led into a trap, right into the monster coliseum. "Wait, Ween. Ween." Bell shouted, trying to warn her about the trap, but it was too late. A large number of spells were cast by the mages surrounding the circumference of the site, thus causing great damage to the little monster. "Ween. The floor is collapsing." Bell shouted as he ran towards her to hold her, but fell just like Ween. When she finally stood up, she noticed the damage was done, that little girl was disappearing, her magic stone was breaking. "No. No. No." The white-haired man denied, hugging the girl's body. He placed the viewer tear on her forehead, causing her to return to normal. "Bell, I'm sorry," Ween said, her strength reduced. "Calm down, don't worry, I'm fine," so Ween the boy replied with a broken voice. Sometimes I dream a dream where no one comes to rescue me, a nightmare, but this time there were people who came to help me. It made me very happy, said the viewer, with a smile on her face. Thank you so much for being my hero, Belle. As he finished those words, the magic stone could no longer resist and broke, leaving behind only a large amount of smoke. No, I couldn't save her. Belle's pain, both physically and emotionally, penetrated deep into his soul. No. Her crying grew progressively louder, pounding the ground where Ween had died, until her knuckles bled and her nails dug into her palm. On Lefiya's side. She had managed to close the distance between them, so much so that she saw when he and that viewer entered the Colosseum. Before diving to that place, their eyes witnessed a great amount of magical power heading towards them. Careful, Belle. He shouted, reaching out his hand, trying to stop him, however it was too late. Boom. The explosion caused the ground to crack and he fell into freefall until he reached the bottom of the Colosseum, in danger of dying from the impact of one of the large stones. She was motionless until something caught her attention. Already on the ground, the monster was disappearing and Belle looked totally desperate. What is he doing, he wondered, ignoring the wizards and monsters fighting behind him. No. The white-haired man's constant denial reached the elf's ears. Suddenly he placed a tear of vuiver on her forehead and the change took place. A girl was Lefiya's perception when she saw the girl's form. Although that wasn't going to be the biggest surprise he was in for. Belle, I'm sorry, Ween said. The elf's eyes widened. She spoke, I couldn't believe what I had witnessed. Calm down, don't worry, I'm fine, so Ween, the boy replied with a broken voice. Sometimes I dream a dream where no one comes to rescue me, a nightmare, but this time there were people who came to help me. It made me very happy, said the viewer, with a smile on her face. The pain that the white-haired man felt at that moment was also felt by Lefiya, who was beginning to understand the reason for all this. That girl, that viewer, that monster was in pain, was sad, was suffering. Thank you so much for being my hero, Belle. As he finished those words, the magic stone could no longer resist and broke, leaving behind only a large amount of smoke. Lefiya covered her mouth with both hands, shocked by this, she was also crying. Ween's words had reached her heart. He turned towards Belle to see what reaction he would have. Great was her surprise when he remained motionless, his body trembling. He watched as he took a breath, clenched his fists, and… No. Her crying grew progressively louder, pounding the ground where Ween had died, until her knuckles bled and her nails dug into her palm. Belle, Lefiya called him, trying to get down. She didn't want to leave him alone. That face he showed, it was one she hadn't seen from him since she met him. One full of fear. Pain. Sadness. Impotence. Where had the smiling and always positive Belle gone? She could no longer criticize anything he did to protect her. Lefiya was right, her unimaginable kindness was what drove him to such extremes. I wanted to help him. I wanted to comfort him. Tell him everything would be okay. Things that had never crossed his mind until he witnessed the weak side of the man who called himself his rival. It hurt him to the core that this human was suffering. Trying to find a way down since there was no direct path, a voice caught his full attention. It was a man covered with a large black cloak that hid his face. He stood behind Belle. Uncharted area, the forbidden wall. On this day, I disobey heaven's code. Pious as Asclepius, zealous as Chalice. Your voice forcing the healing power to arrive, I desire it despite the weight. King's tribunal, thunder of condemnation. If you are burned despite God's providence, confront your own hell. Open Cayman, beyond the river of the underworld. Here, dark king. I wish to cross the threshold of madness. Stop unexpected tears, scattered lamentation. The price has been paid. Light of the path. For the sacrifice given in the past, I want the elimination of senseless desire. Oh, I do not look back. It's a chant. What do you plan to do? That doubt arose, since he didn't feel any danger towards the young man, so what was the purpose? Orpheus Day. The thin stranger shouted to finish. When he raised his hand, he saw that it was a skeleton. The large tower of light extended from where they were to the sky. The one responsible for that was Fels, who had used an ancient magic, which was capable of breaking the laws of the world, which was capable of reviving someone. Ween's jewel began to shine in the same way until a sphere of light formed around it until the miracle happened. Ween had revived. Belle. The little girl named him, opening her eyes little by little. Ween. The boy did the same. Belle, am I? She was going to ask, but she was suddenly hugged. You're alive. You're really alive. I'm glad, I'm really glad. She shouted, hugging the viewer tightly, crying again, except this time it was from happiness. Lefiya watched with a small smile on her face. I feel relieved to know that you did it for a good reason. I'm glad too, she whispered with overflowing joy. Her legs gave way and she fell to the floor. But something they had both forgotten was the fact that not everyone would understand what Belle had done, much less a certain golden-haired girl with an immense hatred for monsters. Ganesha family headquarters, the next day. Turning point, my friends. So I see there's no way to convince them, Hermes said, with a somber and gloomy look, rare for him. The decision has been made, either you leave Arario or you will live out the rest of your days in a prison here in the city, Dionysa said, laying out the options. DCH, you are making a very serious mistake, which you will regret, the traveling god reproached them, pointing at them angrily. Hestia remained head down, motionless, not knowing what to do. After what happened with Ween and the Xenos, Belle's credibility as an adventurer had fallen through the floor, no one believed in him anymore, and he was classified as a danger to citizens and other adventurers. The gods held an emergency meeting to decide the future of the little rookie, considering his actions. After hours and hours of debate, in which Maich, Mikazuchi, Hestia, Hephaestus and Hermes tried in vain to convince the others of the situation, without revealing the matter of the Xenos that remained hidden by decree of Uranos, which was the only one missing in the room. The attempt simply remained just that. They avoided the death penalty, but the other two destinations chosen were not much better. Let the accused speak, let him decide his sentence, Loki said, pointing to the door and requesting Belle's presence. Even if he made that suggestion, even Loki knew something was wrong, although he wouldn't risk his family's fame and credibility for the son of another goddess, that was the reason why he didn't take the side of the accused. For Freya's part, she was neutral, since, in either case, she could get her hands on him and keep the human she so longed for. Returning to the trial. The door opened and Belle, with shackles on his arms and legs and his gaze fixed on the floor. Even in that situation his soul shone. Full of determination. Without a shred of doubt or regret for his actions. The conversation began. The options were put on the table. And without hesitation, he gave his answer. I leave it's for the best, so both my family and the people I care about will be the least affected, but I want it to be clear that I take full responsibility for what happened. They had absolutely nothing to do with it, therefore, I don't want them to be pushed away, I don't want them to be affected, I, and only I will suffer the consequences for my actions, he answered, looking straight at the large number of gods. There was no stuttering, fear, sadness, nothing. Only courage and concern for their loved ones. The gods were speechless. They didn't believe it was possible that someone like him, who defended a monster and had been selfish, causing great damage to the city, would care so much about someone else. I am Ganesha. Decided. Adventurer or former adventurer bellcranel will leave Arario tonight. He shouted, finalizing the unanimous verdict. Hermes continued to be angry, almost wanting to reveal what he knew. The last hero of Arario. The last hero of the family of Zeus and Hera. Who would give light to the world when it was plunged into darkness. He had given up everything to save a Vuiver. Belle's shackles were released, Hestia went to him and hugged him. I'm sorry Belle, we couldn't avoid this punishment, sorry for being useless, Hestia said, crying excessively with great pain. He couldn't help his son. And this one would leave Arario. Belle reciprocated the hug. She did the best she could, Kami-sama, for me, she will always be the best goddess, he replied, with small tears forming in his eyes, although he prevented them from spilling. But your dream of being a hero, you will no longer be able to fulfill it, the little goddess reminded him. I will be a hero, Kami-sama, even without living in Arario, even if I have to break my bones and tear my muscles, even if I don't have a felna after you remove it from my back, I will be a hero, none of that has changed, the boy answered, full of determination. Hermes saw a ray of hope in him. Belle hadn't given up yet. Well, let's keep this from becoming public knowledge. Take it to your headquarters, say goodbye to your loved ones and take your things. We don't want to create a scandal with your departure, so we'll communicate it once you've left. Okay. Loki warned, leaving the place like the rest of the gods. Asfi, bring Hades' helmet, I think what we least want now is for Belle to be booed, Hermes ordered his daughter. Okay, Hermes-sama, the light-haired girl nodded, giving the artifact to the white-haired girl. The meeting had ended. Belle's defending gods left, no one but the rest of those present at the meeting knew what had happened, so no one booed them as they walked through the streets, with Belle hidden among them. The attentive glances of the civilians to know what had happened were not long in coming, although they were left wanting an answer. Where is that damn traitor? That idiot defended a monster. He deserves the death penalty. Don't hide it. Do justice. My home was destroyed by those monsters he wanted to protect. Such cries and complaints were directed at the Ganesha family headquarters, as they were not informed of the decision they had made. The words penetrated the boy's mind and heart, who felt pain seeing that those he had defended, cared for, and protected on several occasions were now asking for his head. Cold mind Belle, cold mind, Hermes whispered to the now invisible boy. I must take responsibility for my decisions, even if I earn the hatred of others, I will not regret the path I took, he told himself, ignoring the negative comments. It seems that my golden desire cannot be achieved. With what face will I approach her now that I did what I did? It is better that I forget about A's, he finished, feeling a slight burning sensation on his back. However, it didn't feel any different. And what about his unwavering desire? Shouldn't his ability stop working? The answer is simpler than you think. Now his reason to fight. It was being a hero. And returned to Arario, the city that today turned its back on him, with the goal of saving everyone from the imminent battle that will break out when the one-eyed black dragon returns to finish what he started many years ago. Although unbeknownst to them, that wouldn't be the only evil that would attack the city. Twilight Mansion, home of the Loki family. The goddess of said family, when she arrived at the compound, would give the news specifically to one of her daughters. Even if the guild forbade speaking about it, she had to do it. Which of your daughters would receive such information? A's? No, definitely not. Why? Easy, after what happened yesterday, she had fled to the dungeon and still hadn't returned. A look injected with hatred and fury was the only thing she gave her family members. The girl in question, who arrived at Loki's room in complete despair when she learned that Bel was going to trial, was Lefiya, a level 4 elf. I swear she hated him. What made her change her mind? I have to force her to tell me what she saw, although the punishment has already been taken by the boy, and that won't change, Loki thought, focused on his thoughts. She was walking through the halls of her mansion, and Finn called her. Loki, what will be the consequences of what Bel did? Asked the hobbit. I'm sorry, Finn, we were forbidden to talk about it, you'll find out tomorrow, replied the goddess to the captain of her family. Tomorrow? Don't tell me, Finn said, imagining the worst. It's up to your imagination, anyway, there's someone I need to visit, but before that, hasn't Ace returned yet? He asked about his daughter's presence. The hobbit sighed and shook his head. Berveria, Tiona and Tyan are in the dungeon looking for her, Bed and Gareth are helping with the city repairs and guiding the other adventurers in our family, he replied. It's amazing how destructive a simple foolish child can be, he added, with some discomfort as he remembered the foolishness that the adventurer from the Hestia family had done. And regarding that, I didn't get any information about why he did it, he accepted the charges without complaint and said he didn't regret anything, so the key and his intentions will remain a mystery, Loki added. In short, we all lost something in this attack, said the captain of the family. If that's how you want to see it, I won't correct you, however, I feel that those who lost the most are the adventurers, the red-haired goddess replied. What do you mean? Finn asked, not understanding the statement. Doubts will arise about the safety of Arario and the adventurers' capabilities when there are attacks, with Evilus more active than ever, and now the secondary problem of those monsters. I just know that it will take a long time before we can have peace in the city and within the families, Loki expressed, truly worried about the coming consequences. The hobbit had not considered that possibility. Leaving that aside, as I said before, I must visit someone, the goddess reminded, so that she would not be the subject of further questions. Finn nodded and left, of course wondering who would be receiving Loki, although that was no longer his concern. In Lefiya's room. Bel, what will they do to you? The elf wondered, lying in her bed, unable to sleep. When she was about to go down to help them both, a large number of adventurers arrived on the scene and prevented her from doing so. Fortunately, the magician who revived the Vuiver and the Vuiver herself managed to escape along with the rest of the monsters. Their fate was unknown to her and the others. When the members of the Ganesha family arrived, they went towards Bel. They agreed to go with them without resistance. Lefiya, who saw everything from a distance, could do nothing to avoid it. Fear flooded her being, even more so knowing that she was the only one, outside of Bel and those responsible for everything, who knew the truth behind what the white-haired man had done. Running to where the battle between the rest of the monsters and the members of his family was fought, he found a notable disagreement in the main members of the same, Bet, Tiona and Tyan, had been defeated by a minotaur. Miss A's, if it were not for the interruption of Finn and Gareth, would have had the same fate probably, or both would have fallen in combat. Regarding the hobbit and dwarf, they were frustrated, since, before entering to fight, the large number of smoke bombs prevented their visibility, and at high speed the minotaur, like the rest of the monsters, disappeared. She tried to warn them about what was happening regarding Bel, however, they all told her to go to hell. They didn't want to know anything about him, much less A's, who frowned when he was mentioned. In short, he couldn't tell anyone what he saw, no one cared, and no one would believe him. She was just another spectator, waiting to find out what punishment Bel would receive. She went to her goddess, very scared, and asking her if she knew anything about the white-haired boy. Loki was greatly surprised by this, since he did not perceive hatred in the questions, but rather an excess and pure concern for the boy. She told him that a few minutes ago the Union summoned her to the Ganesha family headquarters, and the rest is history already told. Lefiya waited in her room all day, not wanting to see anyone, as they would ask her about Bel, and the comments they would make about him wouldn't please her at all, which would result in a bad reaction on her part. She knows her problems, her limitations, and her personality. Acting on her confused feelings would cause an even bigger problem and further disrupt the delicate situation her family had found themselves in. Her nerves calmed when someone knocked on her door. Knock tock tock. He quickly stood up and opened the door, finding the person he wanted to meet. Loki-sama, please come in, said Lefiya, avoiding making a scene. At least she would wait until they are inside the room, which is soundproof. I know, let's do this quickly, you probably don't have much time left, Loki replied, rushing in and closing the door. What do you mean I might not have much longer left, Loki-sama? The elf asked. Before I tell you, you must tell me why the hell you are so worried about that boy. I would swear you hated him, unless you are it, Sundir, the goddess told her, with a mocking tone at the end. What is it, Sundir? Lefiya asked. Ignore him, start talking, Loki ordered. But she tried to excuse herself, although she remembered that she could help her, after all, she can perceive lies. He sighed and calmed down. And it was in that moment that he opened his heart, recounting his inner conflict and what he saw when he arrived at the Colosseum after the explosion and the collapse of the floor. Loki remained attentive. I think he was forced into that, it's not his fault, he said after the story. I believe in him, he can be annoying, a damn perverted rabbit, a fool, an innocent idiot, he said, trying to reach his resolution. But I really believe in him, she finished, touching her chest with both hands, one on top of the other. The goddess, her eyes closed and her chin cradled, didn't utter a word. Until. Fufu, he laughed. Loki-sama. Why are you laughing? Lefiya asked. Why, Lefiya. You really are it, Sundir. Loki told her, hugging her tightly and trying to play with her breasts. Take your hands off me, Loki-sama. He asked the elf, hitting his goddess on the head. Ham. Ugh. That hurt. The goddess complained. Stop messing around then. And what the hell is Sundir? Lefiya replied, feeling bruised, her cheeks completely red and embarrassed angry. Nothing, it's just that haven't you thought that, maybe, you're in love with him? The question was thrown at the elf, Loki looked at her insinuatingly. That was the only thing that came out of the elf's lips. His face and ears gradually turned crimson. There's no way I'm in love with him. He's my rival. I love Miss A's. Lefiya shouted, denying that possibility. If you love A's, why aren't you with her now? You could have taken advantage of the fact that things are in your favor now, however, you find yourself here in your room, asking about that child, worried about him, wanting to know what will happen to him. Forgive me, but in my opinion, what I see you feeling towards A's seems more like admiration than anything else, Loki opined. Admiration, that word was engraved in my memory. Yes, I'll ask you one last question before I tell you the fate of that son of a bitch, declared the red-haired goddess. Lefiya, still blushing, listened attentively. Since you met him, who is always on your mind? The question was launched. Since I met him, he whispered. And that day appeared in his mind. When due to a collision they exchanged words. She had fallen to the ground. He extended his hand to her. From that moment on, without knowing it, she began to take an interest in him. Only her jealousy for A's clouded her mind. The rest of the interactions they had together only caused these feelings to grow stronger, however, he continued to deny it because of his admiration, disguised as love, towards the Princess of the Sword. I know I can't, he denied the truth, as if a bucket of cold water had fallen on him. Without expecting it, you fell in love with him, that's how love is, it comes when you least expect it, although it's a shame, Loki said, remembering what would happen in a few moments. A pity? Why do you say that? Lefiya asked, snapping out of her shock as she understood his feelings. He will leave Arario tonight, that was the punishment imposed by the gods. I'm sorry, Lefiya confessed the red-haired goddess. A sensation similar to an electric shock hit his body, causing him to tremble. No, you're lying, you have to be lying, will he leave? She stammered with faint pauses, her tense face and halting words were clear proof of how much the news affected her. I'm not lying, Lefiya, it's the truth, it was that or stay in jail until the end of his days. He made his decision, in fact, he should be about to leave, the news will be given tomorrow morning, so the only ones who know are the gods, the boy's family, and you, Loki replied, getting up from his seat. The elf remained motionless, analyzing the flood of information she received in a very short time. Mixed feelings in just a couple of days. It was something that not everyone could handle. But. I had no time for doubts. She came out of her shock, determined to do something. She ran to her bedroom door, ready to leave. Wait, Lefiya. It's too late. There's nothing you can do to stop him. The goddess shouted, however, the elf ignored her. He left the mansion, running at high speed, ignoring his family members who asked him where he was going. I have to go see him now that I know how I really feel, I can't just stand by doing nothing. She plucked up her courage, she would go for him. Doors of Aurario. Bell, with his armor and weapons in their holsters, stood, speaking one last time with his family members before leaving. Belle-sama, please take care of yourself, don't get into too much trouble, Lily said, hugging him and resting her face on the boy's shoulder, on which she was crying. Belle, don't know, you will see that they will realize their mistake and you will be able to return, I am sure of that, promise us that when we see each other again, it will be very strong, said Makoto, hugging the white-haired boy in the same way that the little girl supported her. Belle-sama, please, let's promise that you'll come back, please, you're my hero, I don't want us to ever see each other again, Haraham cried, trembling and hugging the boy tightly. Girls, I promise to come back, and when I do, we'll be a happy family again, having our adventures, getting into a lot of trouble, but always being together, Belle said, hugging them and crying at the same time. It's not goodbye, it's see you next time, my friend, Welf said, trusting his friend's word. Welf, please take care of them all, even Kami-sama, asked the white-haired man to his best friend. You don't even have to say it, everything will be fine, although it will most likely be Liliku who will take care of us all, replied the blacksmith. They broke away from the hug. Bell turned towards the exit and saw the long road he had to travel. Even though he no longer recognized the long stretch he had traveled just a few months ago, he had grown accustomed to Aurario. He looked back, where all his family members were waving goodbye to him, crying like a child. Hestia was devastated. Haraham, even though she was the same as her, tried to comfort her, hugging her and being hugged. I'll be back, my friends, he finished. He slowly walked away from everything he had built during his stay there. Until a voice was heard. Bell. He was named. He turned around, just like those present. Lefiya, his impression was capital due to the presence of the woman he least expected to see. She ran and ran, without stopping, almost tripping over several rocks, but without falling. What's going on? The white-haired man asked himself. What are you doing here, Lefiya, I was going to ask, but… 5. He was tackled by the elf, who threw herself at him. Don't go. Please don't go. The girl begged, holding him tightly, her arms wrapped around his torso. How it came out of his lips. Damn, Belle, even before you leave you fall in love with another girl, Hestia thought, leaving her sadness aside and taking place a strong jealousy. I said don't go. Please. I don't want you to go. He repeated, sowing even more doubt in the young man. I believe in you, I believe that what you did was right, you were forced to do what you did, everyone is wrong, you were right, that's why don't go, I beg you, the elf added, giving small blows to Belle's chest, and with drops of water falling onto the chest of the person below him, wait, they were tears. Lefiya, I can't do that, I can't stay, I have to go, it makes me happy that you believe in me, however it's not enough that you do it, the young rabbit answered with his head down. She lifted her body, separating herself from the embrace, standing face to face with him and… First. She gave him a kiss, leaving the girls from Belle's family open-mouthed and looking for somewhere to run. Lefiya. He named her with total embarrassment. I love you. She yelled at him, confessing her newly understood feelings, with tears in her eyes. Image by. Belle's eyes widened at the declaration of the girl who until recently he thought hated him. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know how much, but I love you, bellcranel. He yelled at her again. That's why I don't want you to go, please don't go. The crying didn't stop, just like her pain, the pain she felt, knowing there was no way he would listen to her. I'm not asking you to love me, I just want you to stay, he finished. He, not knowing what to do or say, continued to be hugged. Suddenly, he separated her from his body. Lefiya was surprised. He stood up and extended his hand, just like when they first met. Belle's eyes were covered by his hair. He didn't say anything. Belle. The elf named him. He turned around and walked back to the exit. Not without first saying a few words to that girl. Lefiya, I can't reciprocate your feelings right now, he told her. Lefiya's ears drooped as did her spirits. I see he does love Miss A's, he thought, with a pang in his chest. That's why when I get back I want you to tell me again, if your feelings don't change by then, Belle added, smiling at her. Lefiya raised her face and her heart beat rapidly, ready to give her answer. Yes. She agreed, with mixed feelings, mainly sadness at seeing him go. Another image of the good. And having confessed her feelings, with her promise made, Lefiya watched as Belle disappeared into the distance. But that was the last time Lefiya saw him for over a year. Somewhere, a few days after bellcranel's exile was made public. Revis, it seems our plans will be delayed, Enyo reported. The creature called Revis was at his side. Tell Filvis that he has time to get stronger, because of that damn child, security in Aurario has increased, and it will be difficult to move without being detected, we will wait until everything calms down, anyway his fate is sealed, a little longer of waiting is nothing, Enyo added, extending his hands in front of the army of violas he had formed. And if the violas weren't enough, his creatures and demi-spirits would be. And above all his secret weapon. End of the flashback. Would this have been the same with him here? Was the question, almost crying as she remembered a certain boy. Vilvis was about to deliver the final blow to Lefiya, who closed her eyes, accepting her fate. I would have liked to see you one last time, Belle, he thought. On the side of Dionysus. Ahahahaha. It's all over, Loki. Not even with the help of those monsters could they do anything. No one will save them. They were witnesses to the loss of Aurario. Shouted with joy the blonde god who had been the cause of all this, who in reality was Enyo, the member of Evilus and boss after the fall of Thanatos. The red-haired goddess remained motionless, not knowing what to do, just still before the massacre that her children were carrying out. I have to admit that I didn't expect them to defeat most of the demi-spirits, and the Violas, however, Revis and Filvis are on another level. Your daughter, the Princess of the Sword, is about to meet her final destiny, Enyo continued, with a face full of joy and ecstasy for the destruction caused by himself. Ahahahahaha. He kept laughing. Loki had been defeated, no, Aurario had been defeated. All the gods, behind them too, were terrified, from Hestia to Freya. Hermes was smart, at least he fled before all this, Enyo said with some discontent. One of the most problematic gods he wanted to eliminate had been saved. Hey. What is that? Hestia shouted, pointing to the sky. The eyes of all the gods, even Dionysus's, turned to what the little goddess had seen. It was a dragon. Oh, so you're back, Hermes, Enyo said with a smile from ear to ear. Wait, isn't that Artemis? Maich asked upon recognizing the silhouette of a certain woman with sky blue hair. Someone jumped from the dragon. Take shouted as he watched a person falling from the top. Your last-minute tricks won't save anyone, Hermes. Dionysus shouted at the traveling god. On Lefiya's side. I wish I could have seen you one last time, Belle, Lefiya thought. I didn't want to do this, but you don't leave me any choice, Filvis said before killing her. Until yes, without warning, an explosion sounded nearby. Lefiya, Filvis, Tiona, Tyan, Batch and Argana, who were the only ones conscious at that moment, saw the great flame of love growing and consuming everything in its path. And among the flames, a figure approached, unable to see him because of the smoke. When he got close enough, that stranger took shape and they recognized him. Lefiya named him, she couldn't believe it, that boy who hadn't been heard from for a year, was standing, holding a long sword, with his clothes torn and a scarf covering his neck. Bellcranel Filvis couldn't believe the imposing presence and the heavy atmosphere that this boy emanated with every step he took. You're just another hindrance. The creature shouted, preparing an attack, however it was very slow. Slosh. The arm he had raised, aiming at his target, was cut off with a swiftness and cleanliness worthy of a master swordsman. In a single movement, he had severed Filvis's arm and placed himself between her and Lefiya. Belle, is it really you? The elf asked, almost crying with emotion. I said it, didn't I? I said I'd return to Aurario, so here I am, he said, without taking his face off his opponent. Who the hell do you think you are? Shouted the beast Filvis, launching itself at him to kill him with its physical strength. 5. The strong impact caused a shock wave that pushed the tired and fainted bodies of the adventurers who fell in combat. When the dust cleared, those who remained conscious saw Belle, with one hand, stop Filvis's blow. Unfazed. Without being pushed. Standing like an oak. You abandoned your humanity at the wish of a selfish god, said the white-haired man, squeezing the girl's fist. Crack. The creaking sound came from that area. Ah. Filvis screamed from the pain caused by the strong, almost crushing pressure that Belle exerted on his hand. He felt his bones breaking. You were just a toy to fulfill a vile and ruthless goal, the boy continued, raising his free hand. Filvis began to feel fear, a strong fear, seeing his death approaching at the hands of the one his god had considered a nobody. That's why I have no reason to be merciful to you, he finished. Firebolt. A loud scream came from his lips and a scarlet lightning bolt formed in his palm. Even if it was a magic without chanting, at the distance they were at and the strength demonstrated by the one who recited, Filvis would not survive. Zoom. As if it were a projectile cutting through the air, the beam of fire shot out at his body, specifically at his torso, leaving a giant hole where vital organs had once been. The lightning had continued until it struck a group of violas that were approaching. And Filvis disappeared, leaving no trace. On the side of Dionysus. I am possible, the god who planned all this said, completely astonished. I see desperation in you, my good Enyo, Hermes said in a mocking tone, posing the dragon in front of the viewing platform where he witnessed everything. You. The golden-haired god shouted angrily. You know, I could be an idiot and someone very Machiavellian, Hermes began his speech. But I wouldn't let a massacre like this happen if there was anything in my hands to stop it, he continued, getting off the beast. Behind him, Artemis had arrived. Who the hell is that son of yours? Enyo yelled at him, however, the goddess of the moon hit him hard in the face. "Don't come near me, you disgust me," the blue-haired girl answered. "Do you remember what happened with the Antares?" Hermes reminded him. "The battle in Milan against the Leviathan hatchling," Artemis added. "The subjugation of the Hydra we thought was dead," continued the peach-haired god. "And the murder of the Manticore a couple of months ago," the goddess of the hunt finished. "He did it all alone," Hermes revealed, with a big smile on his face, which showed pride and arrogance. Author's note. For obvious reasons I can't write what happened in those 4 battles, because if I do this thing would easily take 40 to 50,000 words. I won't go into depth on them, so imagine it. A bucket of cold water fell on Dionysus's body. He turned with trembling to see that great adventure, although the only thing he left behind him was the trail of burnt and sliced violas. His speed was monstrous. "F4 impossible battles even for adventurers from Aurario," he whispered, still in shock. "But what is your name?" Loki asked. "Is bellcranel. That boy exiled a year ago. The most promising adventurer of the last 5 years. Hestia's son. He had returned. Impossible he didn't have a Felna when he left," said Freya, who recognized the boy's white soul when she saw him in action. "That was until he saved me from Antares," Artemis replied. "Now, Enyo, watch as your plans are thrown overboard by a piece that wasn't on the game board," Hermes finished. "On the side of Aes and Revis." "What's all that noise?" Revis asked, having cornered Aes. Various explosions, screams of violas, smoke left behind by their death, all of this was perceived by the creature. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. "Sorry Arya, I think I'll finish you off without telling you what you wanted to know. I have to find out who's causing all the commotion and kill him," he said to the Redeed, throwing his fist at the golden-haired girl's heart. Firebolt. Boom. The scarlet bolt of lightning struck her side, sending her flying and crashing into the nearest wall. Aes, who had been staring into space, looked at her savior. "You must stop giving total control of your body to your hatred. Fighting for revenge will only get you killed," said the white-haired boy. He named him the Princess of the Sword, who needless to say was beaten to a pulp. "Get out, and if you have any strength left, help the wounded. I'll take care of it," the young man ordered, throwing his sword aside and preparing for a fight with his fists. It was not to give his opponent an advantage. It was because that weapon would not penetrate the skin of such a strong rival. Revis emerged from the rubble. "Go Aes." Belle shouted to the girl to get her out of her surprise. She obeyed and ran as fast as she could. Revis spat out something resembling blood. "So you're the one who caused all the fuss. I have to admit you seem like a strong person," said the creature, cracking its neck. The white-haired man remained silent without saying a word. "But I will destroy you for preventing me from killing Arya," he declared. In a split second, he was face to face with his prey, who didn't even flinch. His fist was getting dangerously close to Belle's face, but… Phew. A strong hook to the stomach landed before she could complete her attack. In surprise, he was unable to avoid the next blow. When he realized it, Belle's fist was just millimeters from his face. 5. A blow to the center of its face caused it to fly off again and crash into the rocks, destroying everything in its path until the speed at which it was thrown decreased. What the hell? Revis couldn't believe what had happened. In 2 simple movements, he knocked the wind out of him and broke his nose. I couldn't see it," he commented, standing up. While analyzing the situation, the wind raised a large amount of dust. Phew. Another accurate blow landed on his jaw, a clean uppercut. She was lifted into the air by the force infused into that attack. Crash. The house stopped his advance. She tried to stand up again, but was attacked as soon as she got back up. Zoom. Like something cutting through the wind, that sound became present. Right in front of her, an outstretched palm pointed at her. There was no coup. Just an outstretched palm and a serious face from the boy. Firebolt. Boom. The beam of fire sent her far away and set her whole body on fire. This can't be possible, he thought, feeling his consciousness disappear. I can't lose. Like an animal, he launched himself without reasoning and with pure brute force towards Belle. The white-haired man dodged each blow with great certainty and blocked the ones he couldn't avoid. 5. 5. 5. Several impacts resounded and made the ground tremble, but none were hitting the target. The shock wave created by the blows was nothing more than a simple block for Belle, who did not deign to attack. The great speed of both prevented the gods and the living adventurers from even being able to see anything more than an image of particles moving without any apparent direction. The only thing that was in his eyes was Belle's body and legs. The only thing the boy was moving was his arms. And yet, he was not pushed back by Revis's constant attacks. "Enough," the white-haired man whispered. 5. The strong blow disoriented Revis, who stepped back. When he opened his eyes again, his rival disappeared. Until… 5. Something flashed by and hit his cheek. And again. 5. 5. 5. From all directions, from all sides, Revis was attacked. 5. 5. 5. 5. 5. Enyo's strongest creature overwhelmed by a boy who was level 3 a year ago. Nothing made sense. 5. 5. 5. That was the constant, one hit and it disappeared. Another one and he attacked somewhere else. I couldn't see. I couldn't fight back. Much less defend themselves. Suddenly, Bell stopped attacking and stood in front of her. There's no point in continuing with this, he warned. And the ground on which he walked cracked. Every step. Every contact with your soul in the ground. I broke this one. He was a real monster. And accepting his fate, Revis lowered his arms. 5. 5. 5. 5. 5. Something like that, but unilateral. Revis's body stopped healing and was falling apart from the blows. Shredded meat. Bones breaking. Open wounds. Tendons wearing out. Dead nerves. His body was no different than a punching bag, which Bell was in charge of hitting. The massacre was the best way to define what was happening. Bell extended his palm and took a deep breath. Firebolt. Boom. Revis's body exploded, leaving no trace of what was once a living being. But the gods. This is over, the last creature and the violas were defeated, Hermes said to a kneeling Enyo. It can't be all these years my plan, he wailed, hitting the ground. That's what you'd like to hear me say, right? The tone of his voice changed radically. It's not over yet, he added. The earth shook, specifically the dungeon. From it, a huge beast emerged. It was a dragon. You must be bucking kidding me, Loki whispered. Dionysa stood up. Yes. This isn't over yet. It's the Nidhogg. It may be a child, but it's strong enough to end all of Aurario. The god rejoiced. That dragon that Revis and company had found in the deep floors, jet black and with red lines, was the last resort. I want to see how your acclaimed hero will stop him. He shouted full of confidence, but was interrupted. Orion. Artemis shouted. Bell turned to where the goddess was and threw something at her. It was Orion's spear, that legendary weapon with which he had defeated Antares. What are you doing, Enyo asked. But Artemis, if I do it, why you, the white-haired man tried to say until he was interrupted. This is the best, Orion, we already talked about this, you have to survive and save everyone, you must return to her, right? Be a hero, Bell said, the blue-haired goddess, with a look full of sadness, as if she was saying goodbye. With mixed feelings, Bell gave his answer. Thank you, Artemis-sama, I'll take care of the rest, the white-haired man thanked her, turning to face the monster. His eyes were closed as with both hands he held the weapon that would put an end to the beast. Clang. 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 Bells rang out and a blinding white glow grew from Bell's arms. Clang. 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 Those who were struck by the rays of that powerful aura felt their body light, their heart calm. My body feels warm, Lefiya reported, standing up. Argonaut-kun will do his special move. Tiona said, excited and jumping, as if the wounds on her body did not exist. Wait, there wasn't any kind of wound anymore. Baze watched his comrades awaken. Otter. Finn. Alan. Hedon. Hogni. Phil. Reveria. Aerith. Welf. Paraham. There is. Makoto. Shakti. The Eyes. Ryu. Asfi. Chloe. The Gullivers. Boo. Brawl. All the adventurers who had been wounded in combat stood up. One by one, everyone's injuries were healed. What's going on, Enyo asked upon seeing such a scene. The brightness that will illuminate the world, that is what happens, Artemis said. That spear. That power. It couldn't be proper of a person. It's like it's the power of a god, Hestia whispered. And it is Hestia, Hermes replied. The figure of the goddess of the hunt was transparent. Artemis, the gods named her. I am just an image created by the spear, I am not really here, the goddess told them, smiling at them. A small fraction of me was inside her, that's why she has such a great amount of power, Artemis informed. Why yes, you're just a created image. How is it possible that he's so strong? It's not like you can update his Falna, Loki asked in bewilderment. Part of me is in the spear, part of my essence, which is so strong that it allowed me to update it, but it was consuming my strength until we reached this point, so, Hestia, take care of it, asked the blue-haired goddess. It was difficult to convince him that this was the best thing to do, after all, when Hermes arrived warning us of the war, we knew it was impossible for anyone to lose their life, he continued. This is the best, we'll see each other in 10,000 years, Orion, the goddess finished, disappearing. Bell shed a small tear and nodded as if those words had reached him. Clang. 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 The bells rang louder. Argonaut 4 minutes. The peak of his skill had arrived. Ah. Bell shouted as he ran towards the dragon with his spear in hand. Bell wins. On Argonaut a win. Win, damn tomato. Win, kid. You can do it, Belle. Lefiya shouted in his direction. Belle stopped suddenly and, propelling the spear with his right arm he threw it, but not before adding an extra. The good and always reliable firebolt. Firebolt. Zoom. The speed at which the spear was thrown gave the Nidhogg no time to react. Slash. He hit the target. The Gaia. A moan of pain came from the monster as the tip of the weapon pierced its scales and skin until it buried itself in its flesh. The dragon's body swelled and grew larger and larger. So much so that it reached a point of no return and it exploded. Boom. Lighting up the sky with a sea of flames. The Evilus's last resort. It was destroyed. No. The Evilus was destroyed. It's impossible, it can't be, Enyo said. It just can't be. 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 He repeated like a madman, tearing his hair out in desperation. This is over, all the gods concluded, sighing with relief. On Belle's side. The hero was standing. That was a bigger expenditure of mine than I estimated, he thought, feeling his vision blur. Thank you so much for everything, Artemis Amma, he sadly thanked the person responsible for this triumph. I can't pass out, not until I meet her again properly, he said to himself. He staggered along, ignoring the voices around him. Looking for a single person. The girl. That girl who remained in his mind and heart the whole time he wasn't in Aurario, the whole time he didn't see her. A hero deserves to be with his girl after doing a heroic act, right? Although he wasn't the only one looking to find himself again. Lefiya ran with all her might, searching for Belle. She was healed by that aura, however, to be honest, if that hadn't happened, she would have crawled towards him. Because I'd waited a whole year for this. Physical pain doesn't matter. Because the joy her heart would feel upon seeing him again would make up for everything. More than 365 days without hearing his voice. Without seeing his face. Without seeing her smile. Without seeing him. I couldn't wait any longer. He was here. After a few seconds of walking, they were face to face. Belle, he named him. I'm back, Lefiya. Belle smiled, that smile that gladdened everyone's heart, especially that of the young woman in love. She did the same thing as when they said goodbye. She lunged and hugged him, knocking him over in the process. Wait, Lefiya. My whole body hurts. He tried to excuse himself, but his lips were sealed by the elf, full of happiness. First. The kiss was given, with passion, with tenderness, a kiss that carried with it an enormous amount of stored feelings, which had waited until this moment to be released. They separated and stared at each other. I missed you, silly, Lefiya said, pouting slightly. I'm sorry for keeping you waiting, but now that I'm here I won't leave, let's enjoy together the time I wasn't by your side for the rest of our lives, Lefiya. Belle replied. I love you, Belle, that hasn't changed in all these days, Lefiya finished, snuggling into his chest. It won't change for the rest of my life, she said in her mind, closing her eyes with a comforting, shining smile. From a distance, everyone saw the young lovers. Did anyone expect Lefiya to be in love with Argonaut-kun? Tiona asked, still in shock, but without interrupting the reunion of what seemed like two lovers. I owe you 1,000,000 valis, he said to Riveria from behind the elf. DCH, Tyan clicked her tongue, she had lost the bet. The evil of a certain god was stopped by a young rabbit, a young hero. He wanted to return to meet again with that girl he never expected to fall in love with. The end. Extra scene. Belle opened his eyes. I had slept for several hours. I haven't dreamed about that in a long time, he whispered. He was in a large bed. He sat down on it and rubbed his eyes. Elle? Are you feeling okay? A woman at his side asked. Yes, I'm fine, I just dreamed about the moment when we met again, Lefiya, he replied. Yes, the woman at his side was none other than that elf. Fufufu, did you remember the kiss I gave you? She asked in a mocking tone of voice. And not only that, but I have to admit that was where the dream ended, the white-haired man responded somewhat nervously. I see then, let's make your dream come true, said Lefiya, approaching her husband. First. He gave her a little kiss on the cheek. I must say I still can't get used to it, Belle said when his wife's lips separated from his cheeks. Yes, they were husband and wife. A few years had passed since their reunion, during which several things happened leading up to Belle proposing to Lefiya. They continued in a romantic mood, giving each other small kisses, or so it was until the door to their room suddenly opened and scared them away, stopping the caresses. Mom? Dad? Said a little girl running toward their bed. She was holding a book in her hands. If we had to describe her, it would be most accurate to say that she was identical to her mother, except that her eyes were red like her father's. Materia, how many times have we told you to knock when you want to enter your parents' room? Lefiya scolded her. But I touched it, otherwise, how would I have opened it? Said the little half-elf, tilting her head. That's not what your mother meant, Materia, Belle said, sweat running down his forehead. I know, sorry mom, it's just that Antiona gave me this story. The little girl said with overflowing emotion, jumping with the same feeling. Belle took it and read the title. Reading it, he smiled. Do you know him, Dad? The girl asked. Yes, of course I know it, in fact it's one of the stories my grandfather used to read to me when I was about your age, it's the reason why I decided to become a hero, the boy replied with nostalgia in his words. So you can read it to me? Materia asked with great excitement. What do you say, Lefiya? Should we read it together? He asked his wife. Let's do it, she replied, kissing him and sitting next to him. Materia sat on both of their legs. Well, once upon a time. Now yes, the end. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.